Modern.
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 We're prepping for a voyage.
Modern.
The force of an old-fashioned equals whiskey mass times bitters acceleration.
Why don't you make that a double?
Modern Bar Cart.
What's shaking, cocktail fans? Welcome to episode 131 of the Modern Bar Cart podcast. I'm your host, Modern Bar Cart CEO Eric Kozlik. Thanks for joining me for this show, which is part one of a two-part story about cocktail competitions. In this edition, we'll head to Loudoun County, Virginia, where our friends at Catoctin Creek Distilling hosted their second annual Battle of the Bartenders. And next time around, we'll get to check out a fun event called the Bar Room Blitz, hosted by our friends at McClintock Distilling in Frederick, Maryland. But before we hear from the bartenders who showed up and threw down at these mixological battles, let's give you another custom-designed mocktail to keep you satisfied and refreshed if, like me, you're taking a dry January. This episode's featured no ABV drink is the Cool Hand Cuke. To make this drink, you'll need 3 ounces of fresh cucumber juice, 1 ounce fresh lime juice, 1.5 ounces of lemon mint shrub by Element Shrub, and several dashes of our embitterment lavender bitters. You're also going to want a little bit of soda water for topping off and some fresh mint and lime for muddling. To make this cocktail, you're going to want to begin by muddling a lime wheel and a small handful of mint in the bottom of a Collins glass. Then add ice and your liquid ingredients, give it a quick stir, and top off with soda water and an extra sprig of activated mint for your garnish. There are so many great flavor combos in this drink. Lemon and mint are an obvious one right out of the box from Element Shrub, but then you've got that classic cucumber mint combo, cucumber lime, lavender mint, lavender and lemon. Pretty much everywhere you turn, there's a pleasing set of flavors that seem destined for one another. But perhaps the best thing about this mocktail is that it rescues the idea of the long drink from simply being some sort of fruity lemonade or ginger beer. In most cases, that's what you're going to get when you order a mocktail that comes in a highball glass, but the Cool Hand Cuke demonstrates that there's so much more that can be done in this category. Bonus points if you enjoy your Cool Hand Cuke through our stainless steel or bamboo straws, courtesy of Jungle Straws, which you can purchase over at modernbarcart.com. And just for podcast listeners, we'll make these straws as well as our embitterment lavender bitters and the lemon mint element shrub all 10% off for the remainder of the month of January 2020, in case you'd like to pick some up and make your own version of this delicious no ABV sipper. So, now that you're all set up with your dry January drink of choice, I encourage you to take a nice, long sip, close your eyes, unless you're driving or walking or doing something that requires eyesight, and join me on this exciting journey through the people, ingredients, and challenges that comprise part one of this two-part series on cocktail competitions. We'll also be rolling out this mini documentary in video form, so please be sure to keep your eye out on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel to make sure you catch it. But for now, please enjoy this fascinating look into the world of the bartender. Consider, if you will, the cocktail. It contains spirits, flavoring ingredients, sweeteners, and often sour or bitter components. But saying this is like saying that a poem contains words, imagery, and musical language. What does it all mean? You consume a cocktail from a glass in much the same way you consume a poem on the printed page, starting at the top and working your way to the bottom. Knowing what ingredients are in a cocktail and in what proportions, you can point to it and say, old-fashioned, or Negroni, or Mai Tai, just like you can point to a poem and say sonnet, or haiku. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. In a mixing glass, soak a sugar cube in aromatic bitters. Add a small splash of water or club soda. Muddle the sugar and bitters with a wooden muddler until a sweet and bitter slurry is created. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. Add ice for stirring and 2 ounces of your favorite bourbon or rye whiskey. Measuring your pour will ensure consistency when recreating this drink. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growst. Stir with a cocktail spoon for 40 revolutions, keeping the back of the spoon in contact with the glass. Then strain into a rocks glass over a large ice cube. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Take a generous strip of peel from a fresh orange, twist it over the top of the drink to express the oils, drop the twist in the glass, and enjoy. Perhaps the most mysterious aspect of both poems and cocktails is the person responsible for creating them. Distillers of words and writers of liquid verse. Like the poet, the bartender is part technician and part dreamer, always striving for a chord that is both mathematically perfect and universally resonant. In this brief documentary, we'll meet some of these cocktail artists and learn what compels them to brave the unruly world of flavor and tame it for our pleasure. It was a brisk day in early November when I arrived at Osso, a bar and restaurant in Brambleton, Virginia, where the second annual Catoctin Creek Battle of the Bartenders was set to kick off in just a few short hours. I rolled in, set up my cameras and microphones, and one by one I got to meet each of the bartenders who would be competing later that evening. First up, I got to chat with bartender Eric Bowers. Eric.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being on the podcast. We are hanging out here at Osso in Brambleton. You're my first victim here in the interview booth. I wanted to talk to you, get your backstory, and see how you got into bartending and where you're working today.
Well, I live and work at Magnolia's. I live in Purcellville. I work at Magnolia's at the Mill, which is one of the sister restaurants in the restaurant group that houses Tuscarora Mill, Fireworks, as well as South Street under in Leesburg. It's a great company. I actually worked for them a long time ago when I was a teenager, which actually sparked my interest of getting actually behind the bar. And I've tried to leave the restaurant industry many times and come back. It's a comfort, hospitality, making people happy, seeing the crowd, getting to know your locals. And that's really, you're an unlicensed therapist, financial advisor, et cetera, behind
right.
the bar,
Nice.
So yeah, it's been a long journey, and here I am now. Didn't have any idea I'd be here today, but I'm excited.
Next up, bartender Aaron Robertson.
All right, Aaron Robertson, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, can you?
here.
Thank you. Can you tell us your bartender story? How you came to be a bartender, and how you came to be working at the place you're at now?
Yeah, I actually went to school for photography and film, and then after
So
a
this
little
is
while,
familiar junk. Right?
yes, a little while of working in retail merchandising, I left to work on my photo business full time. And a friend that's a chef, was a chef at Moco Mandy, needed a hostess, and I said I'd help him out a few days a week. I saw what craft cocktails were. I've always been a big drinker, but an uneducated one. And so once I saw actually Phil Duong behind the bar at Moco, I decided within like 3 days, I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah, that right there is appealing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I literally just bought a bunch of books. Instead of going to the bar at night, I would watch YouTube videos, and the chef and I became great friends, and he taught me everything he knew, and I started bar backing for Phil. And just started. Phil graciously would let me bartend like half the shifts, and he would bartend half shifts. So, I went on then to work for Chef Jason Maddens at his restaurant Clarity in Vienna. I was a head bartender there for 2.5 years. and then went on to DC, Convivial, for 2.5 years, which was awesome.
Very nice.
Worked under who I call my mentor there, Ben Long, who worked under Shasta Petrovsky, and did some pretty intense training with him. So Convivial was great, and then I got this opportunity to work with Chef Jason again, and couldn't pass it up because Jason's great. So now here I am also in Brambleton.
So you're the home defender right now.
Yes.
This is your turf on the reg. So do you think, does that give you an advantage?
Somewhat, just because I think I'm familiar with the environment, but it's also put a little more stress on me just because it's in my house. So
yeah, it's like in your house, and then there's people right now like in your house right now.
Yeah, I'm like,
you're like, that doesn't go there.
Yeah. So well, I mean, and this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So, I don't know how much of an advantage it is to be in my home turf, but we'll see.
Next, I pulled up a seat with bartender Chris West, who came to Virginia by way of Boston.
Chris West, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Tell us how you got into bartending and how you ended up at your current bar.
Yeah. Weird, not typical way to get into bartending. I definitely came at it from a consumer's point of view first. Lived in Boston for a long, long time, and that's kind of where I got this love for spirits and spirit making and craft cocktails and all of that. But I never really had any desire to get into the field itself because I was studying music at the time, so it's kind of another profession of mine. And then when I moved out to Virginia from Boston last year, I was in Winchester and Frederick County and really felt that void of cocktails when you're so used to living in a city and you've got
you just walk
craft
down the
cocktail
street.
bars that are top tier everywhere, and then there's not too many to choose from in that area. So I was like, I'm gonna just start making these things my own. I love them, and I've been learning about the spirits and the making process as I've been getting into it. So then it just became a full-fledged obsession, and I just got my hands on every book I could read, and then I launched a craft cocktail catering company called Nightcap Cocktail Co. And that was kind of that just came about from me making cocktails at home for my wife, for friends of friends, and people were asking if I could cater parties and birthday parties. And,
it escalates quickly, does it not?
Yeah. So I just decided to make it a thing and then launched it. And then fast forward a few months or so, and then Wine Kitchen contacted me about an opening at their place for a new head bartender, and I went in and stayed there for about 3 days and learned all I could and got familiar with the place and left with the job.
Next, we hear from bartender Alex Moreno.
Alex, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I'm sitting here with Alex Moreno from Circa in Clarendon.
Yes.
Right? Tell us how you got into bartending.
So, just I don't know, like any other job, I guess. I just kind of fell into it. I had been serving for a little bit at this fine dining sushi place, and I liked some of the recipes that they were working with behind the bar, and I asked them if I could move up, and unfortunately at the time they said that they couldn't they couldn't do the training stuff for me at the time, and so they were like, but if you want to come in on your time off, you're more than welcome to. And so then I was friends with one of the bartenders, so she was like, come on your day off and I'll teach you. And so that's how I got started, just like that. And then eventually they hired someone else to train us a little more, and I got the gig. So
nice.
So, yeah.
Next up, we get to know bartender Nikki Drake.
Nikki Drake, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So how did you become a bartender?
Entirely by accident. So, like most people, I worked bar through college, or I guess I'd rather served through college. I had to make somebody let me behind a bar. So I majored in philosophy, which is, a great degree to major in when you're a bartender. And
yes, it's useful, right? Some people come in all the time. They're like, well, I'm more of a utilitarian,
people sort of do. Yeah, absolutely. The amount of people who mentioned Hegel last week was alarming. So,
wow.
But no, I finished my degree in philosophy, moved to Northern Virginia, and I meant to go to grad school and law school, but instead I fell in love with bars, so here I am.
Beautiful. So where do you work currently?
I'm at 2941 Restaurant in Falls Church.
And what's the style at that establishment?
So 2941 is sort of New American upscale with heavy French influence, French chef, and a little bit of Mediterranean background as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what are the cocktails there? Like, what are you mixing up on an average night?
On an average night, sort of, we divide the menu into sections. We've got seasonal selections, we've got curated classics, we do a nice zero proof section because we have a lot of non-drinkers, and I think that's like a growing trend in our industry, as well as particularly for our clientele. I've never had this many people ordering zero proof. So we just try to keep it fresh and rotating, fun. We're making drinks, not saving the world, so try to keep it light and fun.
Exactly, yeah, that's why you go to a bar to have fun, right?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
And finally, we hear from rock and roll barkeep John Schott.
John Schott, nice to meet you.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So can you talk about your journey as a bartender, how you got into it, and where you are currently?
Sure. Well, currently I'm at the People's Drug right now in Old Town Alexandria. I'm the beverage director there and the GM as well. Getting into bartending, I was a teenager. I was a way for me to kind of be a bar back and see concerts for free in DC. So I would bar back at places that had live music venues, and I was always enamored with the bar staff. And even seeing the musicians staying after to hang out with the bar staff. It was just this really beautiful, wild thing that I saw this chaos and the beauty in it, and I was just taken by it. So I was bartending when I was a teenager, and then if ABC came in, it was kind of bar backing for a second.
Swiping something down.
Yeah, exactly. So that was when I was like 19 years old. And then I've been bartending in Virginia and DC, and now back home in Virginia since. So.
What we've just heard constitutes the first half of the hero's journey, the humble beginnings and the coming of age. But as these bartenders prepare to face a series of challenges, their unique skills and styles of drink become incredibly important. Here's what Chris West had to say on that subject.
Question, what style of cocktail like really characterizes you? Like, what if you had to like define your personal brand in either very loose or very specific terms, what does that look like?
Complex ingredients. I really started, I think like most people got into cocktails with like a really well-made old-fashioned. And that's just, once you have one, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's just the most simple thing you can make. So that was kind of my like impetus to loving cocktails. And from there, I always gravitated towards like stirred and boozy things. And then like the complexities started to develop a little bit more, and I started getting into more like herbal liqueurs and amaros and bitter aperitifs and all of the like, and those kept on creeping their way into stirred and boozy cocktails. And then also like, what does like an amaro sour taste like? And then what about like a tiki drink but with an amaro as the base, or something herbal as the base, like a chartreuse swizzle?
Yeah, jungle bird.
Yeah, so all of these kind of iconic templates, but using things that are, atypical. And that's kind of, I think that would be my style of drinking. That's how I like to drink. It's what I like to make.
Next up, Alex Moreno talks about his journey from complex, exotic drinks to the ultimate simplicity of the old-fashioned.
Very cool. So what kind of cocktails were you making, or were they making at this sushi place? And what would you say is like your style of cocktail?
So at this place, they were making a lot of like Japanese influenced cocktails. And definitely not my background at all, but I had been working there for a few years, so I did understand a little bit of the style. But after I left that place and I started working at other places, I enjoyed more of a classic style cocktail, kind of like old fashions or Manhattans, martinis, whatnot, any of the classics. So that's more of my style there.
So you kind of almost went in reverse. You had some like more like esoteric style cocktails using like less common ingredients than you worked. You kind of like backed your way into like the old fashioned.
Yes.
Which is a little bit unusual.
I don't know. I enjoyed like the simplicity of it, but also the balance between the flavors and how, it's easy to make at home and enjoy with friends. It's and it's just so beautifully done.
Now here's Nikki Drake on the value of brightness and the potential danger of certain pantry ingredients.
What would you say your style of cocktail is? Is it culinary? Is it a little bit more heady? Do you go boozy? Do you go fresh and acidic? What do you usually get? What's your brand of cocktail?
I would definitely say if I'm doing a menu, I try to do a little something for everybody. You want to have a balance of spirits and presentations. But for myself, I'm definitely more of like a sour girl. Like I like to keep it tart, like to keep it refreshing, light. Spirit forward is good, but you're not going to have more than 2 of them, right? So I want to sell somebody 3 drinks. So.
I see. No, that's good. That's good math, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The front, keeping things light, keeping things kind of light and tangy is good. And you've obviously got like a ton of cool ingredients to work with tonight.
There's a lot of really fun stuff out there.
So you guys were picking through those just
Yes.
a minute ago. Did you see anything that maybe caught your eye?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the Pratt line of syrups.
Pratt Standard, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I saw their cranberry out there, the cranberry orange, and it tastes like Thanksgiving in a glass. So I'm like, okay, please give me turkey as a secret ingredient,
Yeah.
But no, that's fantastic. The Earl Grey is great. Some really fun hot honeys. There's some buzz flowers out there, which I hope nobody uses because it'll kill someone's palate for about 15 minutes.
What's a buzz flower?
So the edible flowers out there essentially cause part of your palate to start salivating, and it dampens your ability to taste sweetness. So if somebody uses one of those, everything's going to be like really bright for the next, I would say, at least 10 minutes.
So is that like a trap?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't know who chose the secret ingredients, but
I hope that
somebody's like first cocktail, first round, buzz flowers for everyone, and then it's all ruined.
All great fighters go to war with a hidden weapon. Whether it's a piece of secret knowledge, the ability to make adjustments in the heat of battle, or simply having a bigger and better army than their opponents. Let's hear what our bartenders think are their secret weapons. First up, Eric Bowers.
Cool. So you're here duking it out with a bunch of other bartenders tonight. My question is, A, are you nervous? And B, do you have any tricks up your sleeve? Any specialties behind the bar that you're planning on using to your advantage here against these other talented folks?
Well, I think I'd be a fool not to be nervous, which is good because it keeps everybody sharp. In this group, there's a lot of talent here, which is awesome, from all over the area. I'm excited to see this year, with the second year of this going, that there's some females in the competition who are no slouch. I mean, all these guys out here have something to prove. As far as ringer or anything up my sleeve, I wore open sleeves today just to make sure I didn't sneak anything in.
Exactly. You got to be. You get checked at the door.
I did pull a favor, and I pulled in last year's People Choice. That was Jeff Barry. So him and I used to work together. We've always collaborated over the years, and so he's going to be my wingman and hopefully push me to win.
And you've each got a bar back, right? So you've got Jeff Barry, former People's Choice, as the bar back.
Yes, sir.
That's crazy. That's like a president having another president as the vice president.
We'll see.
Wow.
Next, Chris West describes his approach to the secret ingredients.
Do you have any secret weapons? Any like tricks up your sleeve that you're going to bring to bear? Or are you just going to kind of come at this like face on and just
going to go for it? I'm going to taste the mystery ingredient, whatever it is, a bunch of times and get familiar with that taste profile. And
sit with that.
Build from there. And I got stunning barback, Jeremy. He's a seasoned pro in the bar world. And we're just gonna kind of tag team it. We've got our plan. So,
if Jeremy was a Pokemon, would he be like more fire, water, or earth?
Oh,
or like the weird electricity?
He's cool and calm and collected. And if I'm not cool and calm and collected, I'm not anywhere in the middle ground. It's either here or there. So he and I balance each other out really well.
Nice. So you're like the fire.
I'd say so,
water.
yeah.
Nice.
The energetic.
He's the Iceman.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice, beautiful.
Finally, we've got John Schott, who raises the question, can just having fun be a strategy?
Yeah, so you're up against a pretty formidable lineup tonight.
Yes.
What's your style of cocktails? Like, what's your approach?
Honestly, my approach tonight is just to have fun. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I know a lot of these people before. Some of them are new friends now, too.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of waiting to see what they throw at us. I like the idea of, we're going to be tossed to the wolves, secret ingredients. I think it's a really good litmus test as a barkeep, being able to batch stuff for the crowd, think on our feet, present stuff. I want to get creative. I want to have fun. And more importantly than anything, I want to represent myself well. I want to represent Virginia well. And I want to represent my restaurant well.
After interviewing the bartenders who would be squaring off against each other during this event, I decided to turn the tables and see what the judges had to say.
So we're here with Scott Harris. Scott, what do you look for when you're judging a cocktail contest like this?
I mean, honestly, it's just going to be what tastes the best. I like to see creative uses of the spirits, how they're going to do things and kind of blow my mind. This will always happen. Somebody will do something that's completely unusual and unexpected. So that'll be fun to see. And honestly, with probably 18 different drinks I have to judge tonight, I'm just hoping to make it through the night. So
yeah, we're all jealous, Scott, but we're going to be here pulling for you behind the scenes. Cool. Do you want to introduce any of these other judges here for me?
You bet. So this is Mike Saccone, and he's with Thrasher's, what is it, Tiki TNT?
Yeah, Potomac Distilling Company in Washington, D.C. Just excited to see the different uses of all the Catoctin Creek products and what the bartender's able to come up with mystery ingredients. I think it's always fun to have to do things on the fly and kind of think on your feet, and I'm excited to see what they come up with.
Yeah, it's definitely a practice in execution, but then also style, right? So do you have anything that you look for in a drink that's being presented by a bartender?
I think balance is important, whether it's not too strong or too sweet or too bitter. And again, given the short amount of time they have to do that, it's fun and exciting to see what they can come up with, trying to get the right mix of things.
Next up, Judge Stephanie Gans.
I'm excited to see what will happen in a crunch. I know some bartenders love to follow a really specific recipe, the classics, but I'm curious what they'll do with a surprise ingredient. I think it could be a lot of fun.
Right, yeah. What we're doing is we're adding an X factor, right? So I feel like it's really going to be telling when some of these bartenders come up against a secret ingredient and then have to change their plans really quickly.
Right, and they won't be able to have any time to kind of think about what's going to work well. They're going to have to pretend like it's a bar on a Saturday night and it's crazy, and how do I make something delicious for a judge while also working within a time constraint?
As the bar began to fill up with guests, the bartenders and their respective barbacks put the finishing touches on their stations, familiarized themselves with the pantry, and shared some laughs before the event kicked off. Finally, with a packed house, we all learned about the primary charity that would be receiving a portion of the proceeds from the evening, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and then Catoctin Creek Tasting Room Manager Denise Petty announced the rules.
We've got three 15-minute rounds. So each of the bartenders must use Catoctin Creek product as their base spirit, whether it be our 80 proof Roundstone Rye, our Watershed Gin, or they also have the option of our Quarter Branch Apple Brandy. There is also a secret ingredient that is going to be used in every single round. So we will introduce that as the rounds go along. They also have full use to the pantry here, which has been my experience for all this week. So I'm really glad to finally get it out. And then they as well have the opportunity to use this back bar here. At the end of each round, each of the bartenders will present their cocktail to our three respective judges there. Thank you all very much. After each round, the judges will appoint 1 point to that winning cocktail. At the end of that round, we will then tally up all of those points, and we will have that respective winner for that round. At the end of the 3 rounds, we will then tally up all the points, and that contestant with the overall winning points will win Battle of the Bartender.
And with that, it was off to the races. The first secret ingredient was cold brew coffee from Virginia Commonwealth Roasters, and you could feel the energy and focus in the room as each of the bartenders tasted it with an eye toward a completely unique creation to impress the crowd and the judges. After a frenzy of shaking, stirring, adjusting ratios, and doing the math for large-scale batching, our contenders presented their creations to the judges. Here's what they had to say.
Really representing the coffee that was in this ingredient challenge. Seriously, I think Eric is doing some awesome stuff here. But I think the one that I keep going back to and just drinking here while I'm sitting here all night saying I wasn't going to drink anything is I'm going to go with, where the hell is it? Which one is it? Oh, damn it. The one with the pansy blossom. Oh, Aaron.
As Scott said, Eric, I think, did the best job of really bringing the coffee out and utilizing that and having that kind of be the star and playing with the Catoctin Rye. So for that, my point goes to Eric.
Hey, Stephanie right here. again, beautiful. Thank you so much. I liked that Nikki leaned into the coffee dessert feel of it. I loved that. I loved Alex. I also thought it was easy drinking. But I will have to say that Eric was also my favorite.
With both Eric Bowers and Aaron Robertson on the board with points in round 1, the secret ingredient for round 2 was introduced. A chili-infused lacto-fermented vinegar that rested for several years in Catoctin Creek Roundstone rye barrels. I could see the bartenders getting excited as they approached this spicy, tangy new ingredient, and you could see a major shift in the style of drinks they put together. Following that dark and silky cold brew coffee, you saw our fierce mixologists aim for ingredients that would both complement and soften the intensity of the chili vinegar. Here's what the judges had to say about the creations from round 2.
The use of the spice on all of these is really amazing. Though I have to say one of them stands out as my favorite this time, and it reminds me, it's gorgeous, it's herbal. I think there's some basil in here. I love it. It reminded me of a cocktail that I had when I was in Dandelion, which is now closed in London, a fantastic bar in London. And this one for me goes to Nikki.
So all 6 of these this round were very close. I thought everyone did a really good job using the secret ingredient. But I would have to agree with Scott. I think Nikki was also my favorite as well.
I also loved Nikki's. That corsage is killing me. It's hysterical. But I'm gonna go with Alex. I love there's this salty heat and sweet. I think it's really balanced. It's really beautiful, and I think it's just a little bit different than what else is going on here.
With 1 vote going to Alex Moreno and 2 votes going to Nikki Drake, we had a bit of a situation on our hands going into the final round. Nikki and Eric were tied with 2 points apiece, but it was still anyone's game to win or lose. The secret ingredient for the final round was cannibalism. No, not actual human flesh, but a local milk stout of that name by Adroit Theory brewed with coffee from Papua New Guinea. As you can imagine, beer is just about the last thing that bartenders expected as a secret ingredient in this competition, since it usually stands alone in a bar setting. But the desserty flavors from the coffee in this milk stout did somehow seem fitting for the last drink of the evening. In this final round, stuff got wild. Everyone was working with all their might. You could see the bartenders with 1 or 2 points on the board looking to pull away from the rest of the pack, and everyone else was feeling the pressure to absolutely sweep the judges off their feet and bring home the trophy with 1 round of life-changing drinks. Here's what the judges had to say.
All right. This was a really tough round, you guys. These drinks were really tightly focused in here. And this set of drinks were really, really close and all that. I gotta say that one of the drinks that really stood out for me tonight on this round was the tiki drink. I love the layering, Alex. I want to just give a prop out to you in the back on that. This coconut foam on here on the drink that had the coconut foam. Oh my God, with the coconut foam. But I love the smooth drinkability of a beer and an old fashioned, and so I'm throwing this one to John Schott.
Alex, I think all night you're right there. All your drinks consistently were well balanced and delicious, and we liked all of them. However, Nikki doesn't know this, but Coca Lopez is the way to my heart. I love it more than anything. It's delicious. I know it's gross in what it is, but your drink was great, and again, Coca Lopez will always win for me, so for that reason, Nikki won for me this round.
And with that, Nikki Drake was crowned the winner of the 2nd annual Battle of the Bartenders, with Eric Bowers taking home the ever-popular People's Choice vote. It was a night of intense creativity where 6 of the region's best bartenders exercised both their passion and their technique in front of a huge crowd gathered to support a great cause, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. If you ever have a chance to attend a cocktail competition, I hope it looks a lot like this one. Catoctin Creek's Battle of the Bartenders is an event I look forward to each year. Executed with incredible integrity and an eye toward details, it's a real treat for all involved, no matter which side of the bar you happen to be on. I'm Modern Bar Cart CEO Eric Kozlik. Thanks for joining me for part 1 of this 2-part mini-series on cocktail competitions. And until next time, remember, drink responsibly and experiment boldly. Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, there's 2 big things you can do for us here at Modern Bar Cart. One would be to tell your friends and family if you think they'd enjoy listening to us talk about cocktails. And if they don't download podcasts, they can always stream our episodes on their desktop directly from the show notes page at modernbarcart.com. The other thing you can do to help would be to head on over to iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts and leave us a review. 5 stars are great, but we're more interested in your feedback. And the beauty is, the more reviews we have, the easier it will be for other folks out there to learn about our show. We're trying to start a cocktail revolution here, and by spreading the word, you're helping us fight the good fight. You can always reach us by emailing podcast@modernbarcart.com if you're looking for cocktail or bartending advice, or if you're a pro who would like to pull up a mic and be interviewed for all to hear. Also, definitely follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Modern Bar Cart for cocktail porn, recipes, and entertaining tips. And keep an eye out for new product releases and special offers, which are happening all the time. We love our listeners, and we really enjoy giving you exclusive discounts and sneak peeks at our latest and greatest cocktail projects. This episode may be over, but for you, the mixological fun and adventures are just beginning, so remember, folks, drink responsibly and experiment boldly. This episode was made possible with editing and production assistance by Samantha Reed, some excellent cocktail insights and competitive creations courtesy of Loudoun County's best and brightest bartenders, and a little bit of interview magic by yours truly. Special thanks to Scott and Becky Harris of Catoctin Creek Distilling, as well as the rest of their excellent team, including Denise Petty, Lauren Barrett, and of course, John Shope. The music clip used at the beginning of this episode is Trio for Piano, Violin, and Viola by Kevin MacLeod, used under a Creative Commons Attribution license. This has been a Modern Bar Cart production, copyright 2020.